Hello and welcome back to my channel. For this video, which is going to be hopefully quite a low-key kind of chilled out video, because in all honesty I am in a bit of a creative slump. I've just finished doing my upstairs hallway makeover and I did quite a few different projects in that video. I did quite a lot of forward planning and I think I used up a good percentage of my available brain power in order to do that, and I'm currently in the low ebb of my natural creative flow. I find that I go through periods where I'm very on it in terms of making and thinking about different ideas, kind of hyper productivity where I feel like I can do anything and everything is possible, and I love those periods. But by this point in my life, age 32, I've learned that they are always followed by a natural crash out where I lose all of my motivation, I lose a lot of my creative thinking abilities, and despite me knowing that this always happens, it never feels like a comfortable place for me to be in. I'm trying to slowly unlearn the negative lessons that come from capitalism and productivity culture and not tie my self-worth so much into the things that I do. Whether or not I'm making, whether or not I'm able to clean the house is not a reflection on the goodness of myself. It just is what it is. And I actually think that this is probably the case for many artists and creative people. We are often by nature inconsistent, and I've spent the last few days doing actually very little. I've been doing some admin, some editing type work, but in terms of making, I have been really struggling. I tried to dip my toe back into things yesterday and I actually started needle pointing this little thing, which I think is a bookmark. It just says be still, and it was kind of a reflection on how I was feeling, trying to listen to my body, which honestly just wanted to be still and do nothing. But today it is a beautiful sunny day. It feels like the first real day of spring. I've been out for a little walkabout. I went to the supermarket to restock my fridge. I've done a big clean of the flat. I've washed my hair so it is a little bit damp, and now I'm sitting on my freshly clean bed and thinking I wouldn't mind doing a little bit more crafting today. So I figured I would make something with you, and the thing that we're going to be doing is somewhat inspired by this, in that I'm going to be doing some needlepoint, hand stitching, embroidery, but I'm going to be doing it onto this lampshade, which as you can see kind of looks like it was made for this purpose. I always find a good starting point for making something is to look for a utilitarian object that I either need or that I have and think of a way to adapt it, rather than trying to think of a whole new thing to make that I have to pull out of my arse somewhere. And on days like today, that's just too tricky. Maybe I could make it into a hat or something. It's a vintage woven rattan lampshade and it is quite cute. I've had it for a few years, but it's a little bit too boho-y for my taste now, and it is a little bit warped and broken in areas. There's at least one rip along one of the seams. Where is it? There. Yesterday, after I was stitching this, I picked this up and I actually started playing around with how it would look if I stitched into it. This is like a very basic cross stitch, and then I've just been looping the wool around the edge, and I think it's kind of interesting. I like the idea of doing each individual panel as a little picture of something maybe. Usually for my videos, when I'm making something, I do pre-plan how it's going to look a little bit. I tend to do designs on Illustrator and then work off of those for when I'm making, because it speeds up the video filming process considerably. But today, as I've explained, I have very little in the way of available creative vision, and I think I need to work in a making first way where I just see what it is that the materials can do, try and enjoy the process of actually making it, and I'm going to let myself be led by what I end up doing rather than thinking ahead too much. Tentatively, I'm saying that this is for my downstairs hallway because that's the only place that still needs a ceiling light, but I don't know whether once all the wool is on, if it's going to be way too dark for an overhead light. So potentially I could also get a plug-in kind of long string light and hang this up near my bed or something. It all depends on how it comes out. At present, I have no clue how it's going to look. So I'm going to get some wool out, I'm going to get my tapestry needle, and I'll get to stitching. The beauty of a tapestry needle is that they've got massive holes, so they're easy to thread, and they're so blunt that you really can't injure yourself with them unless you really try. So there should be no bleeding happening today. Since I've already started on the green at the bottom here, I'm thinking why not make this panel into a little landscape with some grass, some sky, some clouds, maybe a little house. Because we're doing cross stitch, I do like the idea of doing something that you would see in traditional cross stitch. You get a lot of house tapestries and things. Maybe I could write home sweet home on part of it and then fill in the rest with odds and ends, little pictures, little blocks of colour. It's going to be very simple. I don't know how much definition of shape I'm going to be able to get because the stitches do have to be quite big because it's quite a loose weave. Because the weave is so big, this is so wonderfully quick, which I appreciate. Sometimes you just need an easy craft to get a pet back in your step, if you know what I mean. Playing around with something, even when you're not sure that the result is going to be decent, has so much value in making art anyway. If you look at the way artists work in their studios, you'll see 50 different drafts of a painting or working on a similar theme before you see the finished thing that they're actually happy to show. Not everything that you make can be museum quality, and I actually think none of the things I make are museum quality, so I don't know why I let myself get wound up about it anyway. I'm gonna pop the roof on next, and I'm thinking I'll do that in the yellow maybe, red for the door, maybe just white for the windows. Also, let me give you a quick update on the doll's bed that I got from the car boot last year for my cat. She absolutely bloody loves it. She's on there all night and most of the day as well, and honestly whenever I see her on it, it kind of makes me want to cry because it's so fucking cute. I don't know how this diagonal line is going to look, but we'll just graduate it up as we go. So I'll start one square further out than the side of the building. The roof is on. I'm getting more confident in my plan of doing various little pictures dotted about on each of these panels, maybe with a few things that overlap, and then I'm thinking I'll do all of the edging in one colour to match. So I probably will undo this bit of green that I did yesterday when I was testing it out. I like the idea of the edging all being yellow. It will hopefully make what is quite a disparate weird lampshade into something a bit more cohesive if I do all of this piping in the same colour. But I like how it's looking so far. This is so much fun. I'm really enjoying myself, and the more I'm doing, the more inspired I'm getting, which is the goal of this type of project. I do find that my creative lulls are actually more frustrating now since I started doing YouTube, because I feel like I should have an endless supply of things that I can turn into content, but I don't want to make this job into a chore because then I will resent it and stop doing it, as I do with many other jobs. I'm going to use this dark red thread to frame the windows and maybe add some little crosses in the middle just for a bit of added detail, you know? Okay, the house is done, and let's be honest, it's cute as fuck. I think now I'm gonna add a little path and maybe a little tree here. I'm so happy that the days finally feel like they're getting longer now. It's just gone 4 o'clock and the sun is still really high in the sky, which is just so lovely. Mental health is always a big reason why my art practice is inconsistent. It's really hard to create when you just feel hopeless or when you feel really shitty about yourself. I have in the past kidded myself that I was going to one day find a cure for my messed up brain, and once I had that missing piece of the puzzle, everything would be better and I would be able to do all of these things that I struggle with. But I realise now that I'm probably always going to be somebody who's a little bit up and down. Me being unkind to myself, reinforcing the idea that I'm a failure because I can't do X, Y or Z on any given day is never going to be the solution that's going to help me. It's only ever going to make me feel worse. Little pathway, tree. Now I'm going to add some blue sky and some clouds and then fill in all of this grass, and then I'll show you this panel when it's done and we can move on to the next one. Today's progress. I just finished off the first panel and this is how it's looking. I don't know if it's a little bit naff, but we're going to balance it out with some other things on the other panels. I decided that I'll do a pink and yellow trim around the top of each panel to tie each of the pictures together, which I will get to work on the next time I see you. 'Tis the next day and I didn't think I'd have any time to film today because I have a friend coming over for lunch, which is noteworthy for me because I rarely have friends over, but I do have a little bit of time today, and I thought I would show you how our first panel's looking in the light of day, and then instead of trying to do any real thinking, I can just carry around this yellow and pink border onto the other panels and it will kill a little bit of time before my friend arrives. After spending yesterday afternoon doing this, I am feeling a lot more inspired than I have been the last couple of weeks. I find sometimes I have to force the initial inspiration, but once I get going, I don't want to stop. I think as well as doing this border to bring cohesion amongst the panels, I'll also try and blend in some of the background colours so that it flows around kind of nicely. And I'll keep within the colour palette that I've used on this panel, which is this selection of wool here. So this is what we're working with. I like the things that I make to kind of have a little story or feel like a reflection of myself in a way. And I'm thinking that this is telling the story of my feelings about home, which I'm going to try and play into with some of the other designs that I put on it. What do you think about videos like this that are a little bit more slower paced, single project videos? I imagine that this one will get quite a few less views than my makeovers. That's okay, because not only is creativity inconsistent, so is success. Sometimes you'll do something and get a great response from people, and other times less so. Okay, short while later, and I've officially run out of time. I didn't quite manage to finish the pink, but I should be able to get it finished later on today. So far so good, and I will see you later. This is a new day, and I did end up finishing my pink and yellow border the other night. Now today we're going to move on to the next panel on this, which I decided I'm going to do a little cat on, because cats truly make a house a home. And I'm going to try and blend in the background colours that I've used on this panel into the background on this one. I'm thinking the cat can be yellow because I really like this shade of mustardy yellow, and I'm going to do it again in quite a naive, childish style. Try and fill as much of this panel as possible. Don't have a specific design going into it. I'm just gonna suck it and see how it turns out. It's funny how I can think so much more clearly when I'm doing something with my hands, because I've been mulling over and over what other things I want to put on this, and I kind of been drawing a bit of a blank. But I was just doing this now and I thought, ooh, maybe one of the panels could be all kind of underground dirt with some worms and things in it. That would be fun. There's the little head. So now let's add a body. It looks a bit dodgy so far. I did the front two legs way too short, so I'm going to go back and extend those, but for now I'm going to carry on with the outline and add a nice long tail going up the top here. I always love the look of home embroidered, home stitched things. I'm actually filming this on the 9th of March, so yesterday or the day before was International Women's Day, and I actually bought a really good book last year, which I've got here, called Women's Work by Farron Gibson, and I just wanted to recommend it to you quickly. The blurb reads, "A celebration of innovative, brilliant artists reclaiming the idea of women's work. In the history of Western art, decorative and applied arts, including textiles and ceramics, have been separated from the high arts of painting and sculpture and deemed to be more suitable for women. Artists began to reclaim and redefine these materials and methods, energizing them with expressions of identity and imagination. Women's work tells the story of this radical change, highlighting some of the modern and contemporary artists who dared to defy this hierarchy. The work of these women has helped underscore the value of art forms within the history of art, championing women's work as powerful mediums worthy of celebration." Okay, that's the blue bit all filled in. And I'm just trying to decide what colour I want to do next. Possibly some of this shade of green to go on from these bushes here. I'm also thinking it would be cute if this cat is standing on a little cloud maybe. So I think I'll fill that in next with a bit of this white. I like a project where I just make things up as I go, taking it each stitch at a time, seeing how it looks, how the balance works and the colours. I'm using a couple of different weights of wool, and actually the one I've used for this blue is probably the best because it's a little bit thicker, so you get much better coverage. This white is really a little bit thin for what I'm doing, but once it's all filled in, you get the general effect. I think I've also decided, rather than covering up this woven piping with yellow, which was my original plan, I think I'm going to leave it exposed as it is, because once it's all filled in, it makes a really nice contrast to the wool. I kind of feel like it would be hard to make this not look good in a way, because once it's all filled in, even if the picture is very rudimentary. The colours and stuff just make it look happy. The only bit I'm worried about cocking up on this one is the cat's face. I think I will cross stitch in the eyes and maybe the nose, but then I'll do like a thinner stitch over the top for the mouth like I did on those window frames, because otherwise I think there's not going to be enough room for everything. It's going to be a bit of a creepy faced cat regardless. But yeah, I'm just stitching and stitching and stitching, which is a lovely way to spend a Sunday afternoon. I've moved on to my bed and I've just made a silly mistake. As you can see, a lot of the edges are gluey because it's obviously where this rattan-y bit is stuck to that rattan-y bit. So some of these edge holes I've been having to stab through in order to sew them. And I just tried doing it down here, but I pushed a little bit too hard and I actually ripped it. So now this bit is all buckled in on itself. It still seems to have quite a lot of structural integrity, just the stitches on their own. So I'm thinking I'm just going to carry on and use those stitches as the base for this bit and then weave it back in here so that it's not all broken. And then at the end maybe I can put some glue on the back of it just to make sure that it's really secure. But yeah, what a plonker. Okay, it looks a mess up close, but from a distance we're gonna get away with it. Green stripe done, now brown. And now for some red. Finally, I'm going to fill in the last bit with some pink. Pink done, and it's now dusky out. Haven't done the face yet, but I think I'm going to do that later in bed, sans camera. So I'll show you the finished panel the next time we work on this in the next few days. And we can move on to the next one. I finished off my little cat last night. Added a little heart and some details on his face. And I think he looks pretty cute. I also got started on the next panel, which I think I mentioned before. I wanted to do some worms. So I started on the worm yesterday. Here he is poking his head out above the dirt there. And I'm thinking I'm going to have him winding around a bit like that. And then flames coming up from the bottom as if it's hell underground. I think I've also made the decision that because the underside of this is quite messy, I don't think it's going to work well as a ceiling pendant shade because I don't want to be looking at the underside of it more so than the sides. I think it will work better as a table lamp, which is a bit annoying because the fitting is obviously for a pendant shade. So what I want to do is try and convert this into a table lamp shade and then also make a table lamp base for it to go on. I just think it needs something a little bit more chunky and brutalist to even out the slightly cutesy vibes of the cross stitch. A couple of hours later and my worm and flame panel is more or less done. Only thing left to do is add some little lines going across the worms. What are the lines on a worm called? I actually have no clue. Do they have a specific name? Actually, I decided I don't like that. Now we will remove and move on to the next panel, which is going to be my writing panel with the Home Sweet Home on it. And I'm thinking I'm going to do that primarily in this dark red and also this shade of green because I haven't used a huge amount of it on these three. So I want to balance it out and do it on this one. And hopefully that will look good. But this is how the first half of it's looking. Now we just got to fill in this half. We're flying through this project now. I think I've decided that this is going to go in my utility room because I would quite like another lamp in there. I don't like the overhead lighting because it's like spotlights and they're really blindingly bright. So this will hopefully work quite well. Home Sweet Home. The lettering looks alright. I had to make the sweet a bit taller than the home because it was hard to do the S over fewer lines. But I don't think it looks too dodgy. For the background, I'm kind of leaning towards a vertical stripe. I also think I need to add a bit of white on this one because I didn't have any on this panel. And I do want to make sure I've got kind of an even spread of all of the colours. I am hoping I'm going to like this and that I can pull it all together with the lamp base. When I'm trying to decide whether or not I like the work that I've made, I do often think, would I buy this if I saw it in a charity shop? And I do think the answer for this is yes. Like if I saw a lampshade with some worms on it, I would have to buy it, wouldn't I? I wouldn't pay the amount of money that it would cost if I was going to pay myself an hourly wage for this, but I would spend a £5 on it, and thus it is not being time wasted. I didn't end up finishing this panel yesterday, but I will be finishing it today and moving on to the next one. I feel kind of meh about this panel. I don't know if the contrast between the red and the green and the blue is high enough, and if the words just look a little bit shitty. But we're carrying on because it doesn't matter ultimately. As I was working on this yesterday, I was doing a lot of thinking about my gran specifically. She wasn't massively into crafts, although she did a few things, but she was such a huge influence on me in so many ways, and she was always just the absolute biggest cheerleader for my art. She acted as if I was one of the old masters. I have quite a lot of things in my flat that were passed down from her, including one of my most prized possessions, which is a knitted blanket which she made with her granny. It does have some breaks and things, so she wanted me to mend it. So it's kind of 3 generations of women in the family working on it, making it together. And I feel like that's a lot of the case when it comes to feminine art practices. They're passed down generation to generation and just made quietly at home. They don't get shown in galleries, you know. I think a good way to think about work that you make is thinking of stuff as like heirloom pieces, things to be passed on and enjoyed by future generations. Even though I'm not having children myself, most things I make will live on beyond my physical body being on this planet, and so they'll end up in someone else's hands eventually, most likely because somebody will have picked them up in a charity shop. But hopefully whoever ends up with this sees the time and the energy and the thought that's gone into it, and it will mean something to them as well. Okay. This panel's finished, and it is most definitely my least favourite so far, but one of them has to be the worst, and we're just going to move on. What I'm going to do for the next panel is a little daisy flower thing, maybe with a sad face, because flowers with sad faces is kind of a thing I like doing a lot, so we might as well have one on this lampshade. So I think I'll start out by doing a circle in the yellow for the flower face. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 stitches that side. You know, I don't know the last time I did cross stitch, probably about 10 years ago. It's not something that I do very often, but this lampshade is absolutely perfect for it. Not too shabby. There's our little flower face. I've added the sad face, and now I can just fill in the rest of it with the yellow. I'm having to be quite careful with the tension on this, because if I pull it too tight, the stitches get really tiny and they don't fill in the space enough. Because the weave on this is quite loose, you do need to do relatively loose stitches. Now I'm going to give our little flower a stem and a couple of leaves in this mossy-ish green, because I used it on the grass on this one, and a little bit of the background there. But I do think we need to bring it back in on this side of the lampshade. It's satisfying to see that as I've been filling in these panels, where they were a bit loose and kind of caving in on themselves before, once they're all sewn in, they feel really solid and secure. I'll show you how it looks once I've done the stem and the leaves, and then we can get going on the background. I have added our blue and green stripe at the top here that kind of go on from that previous panel. You can see this section here is actually quite messy because the edges were all fraying and broken, so I had to do a little bit of a bodgy cover up, to be honest. Kind of the same way as what happened here, but once again, while it's not perfect up close, from a distance it's no matter at all. Current state of the underside. And I'm gonna do the rest of this one with, I think, some more wavy lines like I did on the back of this cat panel. We're on the home stretch with this now, and I'm excited to actually get going on the lamp base. I'll see you again in a few days' time. It's a different day, and I'm back to pick up where I left off with my flower panel here. We're just carrying on with more of the same. At this point, I've got to admit, I'm very much using this project as a way to procrastinate doing other things that I should be doing more urgently, but that is just how my brain works. I think I always felt that my inability to be consistent with my art practice was the reason why I was never going to be able to make a living anything or be, you know, a working artist. I realized quite a few years ago that my end goal wasn't actually going to be making products or items for other people, because I just don't like making the same thing twice. I didn't want to set up a business making paper mache trinkets or whatever, because once I've done a project once, my brain kind of moves on from it and feels over it. I get bored of that idea and I want to do something different. But I've got to say, I feel like I've really found my home on YouTube. There's so many different things that go into making a video. Obviously, you've got to make the actual content, but there's also loads of other tasks that you have to complete in order to get a video out, which tickle different parts of my brain and which feel more possible to me on different days. You've obviously got editing, making thumbnails, sorting out the subtitles, doing your accounts, and all of those things combined kind of provide a sense of ongoing novelty, which works for me because most days there's at least one of those things that I actually want to do. What I feel I should be doing today is editing the video that I want to put up at the end of this week, but I just don't have an editing brain on today. Obviously, burnout from general life is always going to make it hard to have creative energy and focus and be able to be consistent in your practice. I went through a really long period when I was living in London, working full time and commuting all the time, where I just didn't make any work at all. I was so exhausted physically and mentally that there was just no available space left to be caring about art, to be honest. So I totally understand if you're in that position. And a big part of why I'm able to do anything now is because I work very part-time, which is wonderful. Not sustainable in the long term, but for now while I'm doing it, just appreciating it so much and trying to see how far I can push this YouTube. I feel like this is something I can do, something I can do well, and something that I can really grow doing, even with my inconsistent, messy little brain. But yeah, I'm just going to carry on filling in this background with this wiggly gradient of colours, and I will show you when it's done. Done! I don't know why I did that so slowly, but here is this panel finished. We've only got one more to go, which I'll be doing at some point in the next few days. So I will see you soon. I'm looking like a scraggly mess today, but I look like a scraggly mess most days, so it's probably not even worth noting. We're going to be doing our final panel of the lampshade. It's just going to be a little cigarette and then some sort of jazzy background to match in with our other ones. This panel is actually one of the ones that's in a little bit worse shape. It does have some holes right in the middle of it, and it's also got a good amount of glue around the edge, which I have found is an issue because I had to stab through it to get the needle through, and then it seems to splinter and break all of the edges. But I have mostly gotten away with that so far, so we're just going to carry on in the same vein. And I'll start off by putting in the actual cigarette shape, and I'll show you how it looks as we go. That's the end of it done. Now I will do the white shaft of the cigarette. I don't know what it's called. You might be wondering why I'm doing a cigarette on here at all, because it seems a little bit random compared to some of the other things. Although so does the worm. But I'm vaguely kind of thinking about themes of home and stuff making this. And I don't know about anyone else, but growing up with a parent who smokes, I do kind of associate the smell of cigarettes with home. This is not an endorsement of smoking though. People shouldn't smoke. It's bad for you. I don't know if I've done it a little bit too small. I did think about making it bigger. But I reckon instead I'll fill all this dead space with something else jazzy. Another cigarette maybe, or could do a lighter, but I think that might be hard to read what it is. For the tip of the cigarette, I'm going to use a mix of the dark red and the bright red to kind of do an ashy fire effect. Done. It needs a bit of smoke coming up off it. I'm going to fill this dead space with a match because I think it will be easier to make recognisable using this cross stitch than a lighter will be. So I'll pop that in next and then show you. Now I'm just adding a few little pink hearts in the background before I fill it in, just for the fun of it, and to fill in some of this empty space. I think it will look better if there are some different bits and bobs going on. I really tried not to overthink anything that I was doing on this and just put things in where I feel like they'll look nice and add balance to the overall thing. Some of it has been more successful than others, admittedly, but I think all working in unison, it does have a nice effect, and that's all that really matters. You can never go wrong with pink hearts, can you? They always look cute. 1 heart, 2 hearts, 3 hearts, 4 hearts, 5 hearts. hearts, 6 hearts, and 7 hearts. And I think that'll do. That's a good amount of the background space filled. So now I'm just going to fill it in by trying to morph the background colours from the other 2 panels together. And then we will be done. So let me tie this off. I'll show you how it looks when this bit's filled in. Okay, it's actually about a week since the last time I filmed, which goes with the general theme of this video being my inability to be consistent. But I'm back here today to show you the finished lampshade. This is the completed cigarette panel, which I think really came together once the background colours are on. And that just kind of matches in with the other panels I've done and looks decent enough. I think that the match is reading much more like a match. And I'm pretty happy with how it's come together. I also decided to go back in on the Home Sweet Home panel and add some extra colouring on these letters to make them stand out a bit more. And so this project is done, which was originally going to be the end of the video. But I have instead decided to make life more difficult for myself by adding a secondary element to this DIY, which is a lamp to go alongside my lampshade. As I mentioned earlier, the fitting on this is for a pendant shade, which poses a slight issue, but seeing it finished, it has reaffirmed to me that it will look much better as a table lamp than it will hanging off of a ceiling. So I went to the charity shop this morning and I bought the most simplest, basic, cheapest lamp that I could find, which was £4, and it is originally a Dunelm lamp. I think that this lamp would be inoffensive to most, but its greyness means that it is offensive to me. I thought that this lamp would be perfect for this DIY because it's about the right height, and I thought that I could use the shell of the existing shade to adapt my new shade for this lamp base. Because all I'll need to do is take apart this original lampshade, pinch the top metal circle, which is attached to these inner bits, and then that can just get attached on the inside of that, and that'll work out pretty beautifully. So this is the basic gist, only it will look better than that. And then I can just adapt the base to make it into something that works better with my new design. One thing I did not anticipate, and have only just figured out since I got it home and plugged it in, is that it doesn't have an on-off switch. It's one of those lamps that turns on and gets brighter by touching the metal on it, which I'm not gonna lie is pretty fun and novel for me. I don't have any other lamps that do this. It does throw a spanner in the works in terms of what I can actually do to it, because my original plan was to get a lamp base and basically cover it in air dry clay and make this a lot chunkier and more abstract. But I can't do that because I need to access this metal. So I don't know whether I could cover it except for one bit, or I could paint it or do something else that leaves part of it exposed. I don't know what I'm gonna do. Also, I should note that the bulb inside this is a nice low watt LED bulb, so I'm not worried about this being a fire hazard. Okay, it's a bit later. I've been on my Illustrator, did some sketches, did some options, was looking at them, and I decided to do something completely different that I hadn't drawn out. The thought that I had while I was sketching was, wouldn't it be cool if I could get this base to have the same kind of texture as the lamp topper so that it feels nicely unified? And I was wondering how I would do that, and then I remembered something that I mentioned earlier in this video, which was kind of the starting point to this project, which was this needlepoint, what I thought was going to be a bookmark. Just tested it out, wrapping it around this here. You obviously can't really read the lettering still, it just kind of looks like an abstract pattern. So only I, and anyone who watches this video, will know that that's what it says. Feels like it goes with the story of the whole thing and why I was making it. It's a little bit too short for the height of this, so I just need to do another little panel elsewhere on this, the same width, and then I can sew it around this lamp. And I think that that will look quite good. I did do a little test to see whether the on-off thing still works through the needlepoint, and alas it does not. So I will have to leave at least part of this metal exposed. Maybe a little pop of silver will actually be quite interesting against all of the wool. It's a few days later and I have just finished my little blue needlepoint panel, which is going to slot in under this one that I made at the bottom of this pole, so that it's going to be fully covered in the needlepoint like this. The plan has been to also needlepoint the whole top surface of the base of this, which I'm currently unsure whether I want to do, partly because I do want to keep it easy to turn this on and off with that touch feature, and also against the needle pointed stem. I don't know whether I actually quite like this chrome, or if I'm just kidding myself because I want to finish this project. Honestly, either could be true, and I think to find out which is correct, I first need need to get the top of this lamp finished by fixing up my shade. So I'm going to unpin this for now and set these two bits to one side. Take this lampshade off so that I can dismantle it somewhat. Perfecto. Now I've got this off, I need to combine these two shades together. The only piece of this I need is this top metal ring and the fixing on the inside. So I'm going to just strip it down as best I can. Oh, that's so satisfying. This could be quite fun for future projects. So let's set that to one side. Now I just need to remove this plastic, which by the looks of it, it's going to shatter as I remove it. So I'm not going to be too careful with this. Oh, that was very easy. Okay, done. I secured the piece of the lampshade that I need. So now all I'm going to do is secure this to the inside of this lampshade with a few stitches, and then that will be done. Job done. I still need to do a little bit of trimming down and tidying up on the inside of this, which is the kind of job that I can get done in bed later. But for now, this is exactly what we want. It really feels like it's coming together. All I've got left to do is carefully hand stitch these panels around our stem here, and then I can review the situation with the base. I'm liking the chrome more and more, which I am really happy about because that means we're nearly done. Stitching this is going to be a tiny bit fiddly. I think maybe a curved needle will be a good option for this. I'm going to stitch this whole seam closed with the matching threads and try and match the stitch pattern that's already going on so it has a lovely seamless finish. I think that that's come out pretty good. It looks very clean, and I think I got a decent finish on that, so I'm pleased with my handiwork. I've decided that I am just going to leave the base chrome because then we can carry on tapping it on and off. I think there's something 1970s about this whole thing, probably because this shade is from that kind of era. And you did see a fair amount of chrome in 1970s design, so let's go for it. Now I'm just going to spend the rest of today, like I said, tidying up the back of this, and we'll hope for some nice filming light tomorrow. I'll show you this all finished and in place. The lamp is done, and this is what it looks like, all neatened up and put together. I spent a couple of hours the other night just sewing down all of the loose threads and knots at the back, so each of the panels sits as flat and neatly as possible. And this definitely feels to me now like a finished thing. Often with projects, I just keep going and going and going until the point where suddenly I'm like, yeah, that looks finished. And I think that that's where we've got to here. And now that it is finished, I can set it in its final resting spot here on the counter in my utility room. I cleared a bit of space for its special, so I can plug it in here, hide the cable behind the microwave, and voila! Pretty damn cute, if I do say so myself. What way around do I want it facing? Maybe let's do that. I'm going to be doing this all the time. It's well fun. Overall, I'm really pleased with how it's come out. I think all of the panels work together really well, and I'm glad that I stuck within the same colour palette for the whole thing, so it doesn't feel too batshit all over the place. I really loved the process of making this. Doing all of the repetitive stitching was really meditative, which allowed me to not overthink what it was that I was doing, and also gave me space to think about and reflect on some other things in my life and in my art practice. I obviously thought and spoke a lot about my patterns of energy and creativity, and I definitely saw those ebb and flow throughout the making of this. I didn't come to any solid conclusions or epiphanies about how I can deal with that. I think I'm just at a place of acceptance and trying to work with it. This lamp is proof that it sometimes works. It was also a happy surprise to be able to integrate my little bookmark into this project, which I made a couple of weeks ago off camera when I had very little energy. It's quite weird really that the width that I'd happened to stitch that little panel happened to perfectly fit around the base of the lamp that I'd happened to buy because it was the first cheap one that I found in the charity shop. And things like this remind me that sometimes over planning and knowing ahead of time what you're going to do each step along the way of a project can stop you from being able to enjoy those happy little coincidences that spring up that make making things so fun and exciting and satisfying. And yeah, that's more or less it. Now I've finished doing this quite chill real restful project. My energy levels have definitely been refueled, and I'm about to be moving my attention onto actually quite a large and messy project, which is going to be painting and finishing my stairs. So if you like stairs and you want to see that and you're not subscribed, please do subscribe. Please feel welcome to leave me a like or a comment. Engagement really helps my channel get seen. Thank you so much for watching, and goodbye.